Show keeping you informed on the day-to-day news. Listen in on talks with volunteer groups, documentarians, and financial advisors. Monday to Friday with your host, Tyler Kieft. Catch the Megacast weekdays from 10 a.m. to 11 on Civic Center TV 89.3 and streaming on mymytv.com.
This is My Michigan TV, a unique news streaming television network. To watch, simply add our app to your smartphone or smart TV. You can also watch online at mymytv.com. My Michigan TV. My.
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
I'm feeling good. Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine to keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Get ready for The Splash Live, Greater West Bloomfield's dedicated update show. Events, businesses, and people. Anything and anyone causing a ripple in the community. And now, let's dive in to The Splash Live.
Good morning and welcome to The Splash Live. I'm Tyler Kieft. Thank you to everyone from West Bloomfield, Kegel Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and Orchard Lake for tuning in on this wonderful Tuesday morning. Larry Nyland and Dave Scott are out on assignment. The Splash Live is Greater West Bloomfield's very own daily TV, radio, and streaming show. Watch us live Monday through Friday from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Civic Center TV, Comcast Channel 15, and AT&T Channel 99 on the web on civiccentertv.com, on Civic Center TV's Facebook app, and you can even listen on 89.3 Lakes FM. The Splash is part of Civic Center TV and Lakes FM's 90 minutes of news each and every day, live local programming, and you can catch that every single day, civiccentertv.com. Let's start with weather. Well, the chilly fall temperatures are continuing today with showers most of the day and a high of just 41 degrees. Tonight, rain turning to snow showers and a low of 38. And then for Wednesday, more showers early, then turning partly cloudy, but only a high of 43 degrees. Also making headlines today around the Greater West Bloomfield area this weekend is the Fall Household Hazardous Waste event taking place at West Bloomfield Town Hall. Items that may be brought to this event are products containing toxic chemicals such as cleaning products, solvents, pesticides, oil-based paints, and weed killers, as well as those containers that may be empty and still have trace amounts of these contaminants. They are also accepting items such as computers, printers, TVs, batteries, light bulbs, fire extinguishers, and smoke alarms as well. This Friday, October 21st, it is senior drop-off day from 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. Great way to go and drop off some of these materials and enjoy a football game at West Bloomfield High School that kicks off at 7 o'clock. The event is open to senior citizens from West Bloomfield, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, and Kegel Harbor. No appointments are necessary, but you must bring a photo ID to enter the event to make sure you're a resident of one of the participating communities. And on Saturday, October 22nd, all local residents are eligible to attend from 9 a.m. until noon. For more information on either event, the Senior Household Hazardous Waste or the General Community Household Hazardous Waste, you may contact the Planning and Development Services Department at West Bloomfield Township at 248-451-4818. That's 248-451-4818. And for a full list of acceptable items, visit wbtownship.org and enter Hazardous in the search window. Also making headlines today, it's National Friends of the Library Week. From running the Friend Shop and facilitating popular events like Music at Maine to sorting through donations and hosting used book sales, the Friends of the West Bloomfield Township Public Library is an active community group donating time and money to assist the library and its operations. Save the date for their next used book sale at the main library from November 4th through the 6th. Did you know that you can now become a member or submit a donation online as well? Visit wblib.org/friends to learn more information. Another big game is happening this weekend between the West Bloomfield Lakers and the Utica Eisenhowers. They wrap up the regular season. And Lakers, of course, Utica coming in with a 7-1 record. The Utica Eisenhower 6-2 on the season, a very improved team with playoff hopes as well. I had the chance yesterday to speak with Coach Tyrese Grice, and we looked back on last week's big victory on the road at Southfield A&T. Let's take a look at that segment from this week in Laker football.
I just feel that our players came ready to play. We know this is a high-power offense, so you're not going to shut them down. But we had to shut down certain players, and we was able to do that. Although the running game with the quarterback, that's where they got most of their production from. But we was able to withstand some drives and come up with some big plays. Interception by Samaj Morgan was a big play inside the red zone. So those are the type of plays that we was able to make throughout that game, but we came prepared and we were able to execute some of the plays. We did a poor job against the run in certain situations against the counter, but we're going to get back in the drawing board this week and fix that.
In terms of shutting down certain players, one I think of off the top of my head is Tashi Braceful, one of the best receivers in the state of Michigan and certainly one of the best in the OAA Red Division. What was the difference maker in that matchup going up against Deontay Pippin that for you schematically leading this defense and for your defensive backs coach, making that matchup so critical in this game and ultimately Deontay's play?
Well, eventually, we was initially was going to have Lorenzo Williams follow him everywhere he goes. We felt that was a matchup that we can take, but unfortunately, Lorenzo was injured and he was not able to play, although he'd be back next week. So we went to Dante Pippin, who was also a nickel in some packages. So he's been practicing at D-back throughout the year, although he's a wide receiver. So we brought him on board and said, hey, you're going to check the number one guy. There was the fastest guy. And Pippin's one of the fastest guys on our team. So we just, by him playing receiver, that gives him an advantage of what kind of routes they was running and how to defend that as well, by him playing that position. So that's an advantage to him, just knowing that how to play the receiver and what they look for. So he did a good job. And after practice, Coach Dickerson and the D-backs, they got it a little more practice, about another 15 minutes, just working on technique and fundamentals. And Pippin just stepped up, and he was MVP of the game. And if you could shut that production down, which is represent almost 70% of the offense in terms of touchdown catches, then you do a good job.
Less than a handful of receptions for Tashi Braceful in those one-on-ones with Deontay Pippin on Friday night. Coach, a really unfortunate situation early on in the game. One of the first offensive plays of the second drive for Southfield A&T, they had a player go down. Royce Liggins had a pretty serious injury, and there was a delay of about 30 minutes or so on the field in those weather conditions later on of a start than normal. How did that affect your team, if anything, or better yet, what did your team do, and you and your coaching staff, your leaders, to keep your team prepared to continue to play that football game, especially given the emotions certainly that were there in that situation?
Well, first of all, I'd like to put out a prayer to the family of the young man that got injured. I talked to the head coach yesterday, and he told me he would be fine. He's out for the season, but it's not as severe as it appeared on school at the game. So so hopefully he come back and recover. And unfortunately, he has another year, so hopefully we'll see him next year. Secondly, I think that time kind of like it put, it's kind of difficult to measure that because guys just standing around and just you don't want to get tight. So we kind of loosened up and making sure we should continue to stretch and some of the defensive coaches. But we was more concerned with the young man more than anything. So as a coaching staff, we was kind of like, okay, let's see what's going on here. But we didn't. Football is secondary when it comes down to those type of injuries. So we want to make sure that hey, this young man is doing well. But at the same time, our players got to make sure they stretch out and keep their mind focused. And when an injury occurred, you can see the expression on our players because it was near our bench, and some guys basically couldn't watch and turn around like, wow. But fortunately, the player, this injury was as severe as they thought it appears on TV, but hopefully it come back healthy.
Thoughts also with Royce Liggins and the entire Southfield A&T team and their families too after that situation on Friday night. Beyond that, the rest of that game, Lakers taking care of business on the offensive side of the ball, just like we talked about last week, moving up the field pretty quickly and making plays and getting those big chunk plays too. One of the key drives I really think about as being indicative of this team's ability to put its playmakers in the critical positions and make plays was at the end of the first half. That last drive, a little bit of frustration as that drive was getting closer to the end zone, attempting to move up the field by the air, and a few deflections, a couple incompletions, but ultimately we were able to answer on that fourth down play from Samaj Morgan to DeAndre Hill. What does that sort of a drive do for your team to get them ready for the high competition this coming week against Utica Eisenhower, and certainly for the playoffs in those kinds of situations where frustration certainly could be coming into play?
Well, we practice 2-minute drive every week. So that's when they all come into. But the situation during that time frame was we wanted to kick a field goal, but the time was running out. We didn't have the personnel out there because one person said, let's go for it. Another person, and I was saying, let's kick it. But that moment of where guys just stepped up and Samaj stepped up and people don't know we only had 9 players on the field, so that kind of confused. And throughout all that confusion, at the end of the day, your playmakers make play. You can draw it up however you want to draw it up, but you let your playmakers make plays, and that's what happened in that situation where Samaj rolled out and Andre Hill was wide open and he caught up in front of 2 people. So that was a good play by Andre Hill and Samaj Morgan to be able to come together on that play.
That play terminating with about 17 seconds, a little under 17 seconds to play in the half, and put the Lakers up by 14 points as opposed to 7 points, with Southfield getting the ball to start the second half. And Coach, defensively, you talked about your team executing almost to full strength, the only issue really being the running game, particularly with Isaiah Marshall. Was that more of Southfield's ability to execute those plays and put Isaiah Marshall into opportune spots, or was that something that you believe your team needs to improve on this coming week in terms of going up against mobile quarterbacks in those kinds of situations?
Well, it was all scheme, personnel. When we lost Kari Jackson in the middle, we also lost our backup middle linebacker too. So I had to take my outside linebacker, move it to the inside, take my inside linebacker to the middle. So they wasn't reading the counter. And that's something we're going to work on in practice throughout the week, because if I was watching that film, that's where I would attack me at. So we're going to make sure that those guys know how to read the counter. We know how to defend it, and it wasn't no surprise to us. It just wasn't executed on our part. So those guys going to make sure that we just spend a little more extra time on how to read the counter, and that's a tough play for any defense to try to defend. But you got to make sure you know what you're doing.
We're joined by Coach Tyrese Rice. The Lakers taking care of business last week at Southfield A&T. This week, they'll come home for the regular season finale against Utica Eisenhower. Coach, those final takeaways from Friday's game against Southfield A&T, a long game, but an important game in this team's schedule to really show these guys and show really the state of Michigan what this Lakers team is capable of. Any lasting thoughts on that game and what it implies for the rest of this season for the Lakers?
Well, it's opportunity to play in front of a big game in front of big crowds and be on TV and so forth to let the world see what West Bloomfield football is all about. And hopefully people got a taste of the kind of team we have. But what I also take away was the opportunity for our backups. We had a lot of guys out. What people don't know, we have 4 or 5 starters out that week and a couple of our backups out. So we had about 7 or 8 guys, if you include the backup. So we had some guys moved around and shifted around. And for example, Pippen, he's not a D back for us, and he plays wide receiver, so he stepped up. And I contribute to our coaching staff getting those guys ready for a big game like this.
Well, if you want to see more Laker football, you can do so on Friday night when the Lakers take on Utica Eisenhower. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock. Our coverage begins with This Week in Laker Football in totality at 6 o'clock, and the Laker pregame show at 6:30. Well, if you've had trouble recently getting to my next guest's restaurant in Keagle Harbor, those problems should soon be alleviated with the reopening of Cass Lake Road just south of Cass Elizabeth Road. Joining us now is the co-owner of Indo-Indonesian restaurant, Nick Alonso, on the Splash Live. Nick, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. It's been a really difficult time for businesses and really even just for those commuting in and out of Keagle Harbor due to construction on Cass Lake Road and on other roads around the local area in Keagle Harbor. How did the construction on Cass Lake Road affect your business in particular?
Well, I mean, initially, maybe the first couple weeks, we had our diehard customers really did their best to make it out, but we are talking about an hour, probably round trip detour. So that's an extra hour time people needed to plan for their dinners. And, after about 3 weeks, business started dying down. I mean, this really hit us probably about 70% of our business in the last month. So it's been a trial. And, unlike COVID, where we came up with solutions, we adapted, we overcame certain things. It's pretty hard to overcome a road closure. So it's been really tough.
Yeah, and you mentioned the detour being quite significant for some people, almost an hour just to get in and out of the city, to go to your restaurant, to go to their homes, to go to work. The combination of all the different road construction, not just Cass Lake Road, but also Orchard Lake and some of the other surrounding roads in Waterford, West Bloomfield, and so on. And the combination of all that, I'm sure that didn't help at all either, especially with getting people to your business during the height of this construction.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, if anybody that knows about like fiscal policies of government, they get a chunk of money, they have to spend it this year. That's just the way that our government's structured, right? Well, being that they came up with an unprecedented sum of money for counties throughout the state, maybe our government should have looked at turning that into 2 years. Or giving them time where they didn't have to do all these construction projects at the same time. And that to me would have really been the only solution. Just give them a couple years to spend the money and not penalize them for taking that time. And maybe we wouldn't have been in this situation. I'm not sure who came up with the decision to do all 3 of these construction projects simultaneously, but it turned an hour detour into an hour and a half detour. So that really hurt us even more. But I'm quite sure whoever made those decisions does not own a business in this corridor, or if they do, they really just didn't think it through.
Yeah, and it's tough too, because coming off of the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic, things really opening back up and people being willing to go back out and visit local restaurants and visit local shops, it really hit its peak right at the beginning of this particular construction season where these projects were hitting their stride too. And so all the compounding factors have made it extremely tough for businesses like yours, Nick, to stay alive and really come back strong from the pandemic and the throes of what that did to your business.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, it's not just me. There's several friends of ours in this corridor that are really struggling. Our friend Cinda, who owns Evolve Juice and the yoga studio down the road, I know she's really been struggling. So please, everybody, if you can get out and support your local businesses, we all need it, because it's been quite a long road. And thanks for those of you that have made it out. I mean, we had customers parking at timeout and walking down to a restaurant. So there has been a lot of support, but it's been quite a struggle. So, now that we've come out of this, we've planned a fundraiser. Normally we just do a fundraiser like for the VFW or whoever we were doing it for. In this case, we're going to split the fundraiser between the VFW's Oakland County Council youth camp out that they have every year and ourselves. So it's going to be on Halloween Eve, Sunday before Halloween. It's $50 a ticket. We're going to have several raffles. We're going to give out some really nice prizes, as well as there's going to be prizes for best costumes and so on and so forth. So, we're coming out of it with some ideas, and I believe we'll be fine. It's just like I said, it's really been exhausting almost. And the worst part about it is going down to that construction site maybe 30 times in 2 months, and out of those 30 times, half the time no one was there. And we're talking like business hours between 11 and 2. So somebody should have been there working. And of the times when I did go there and there were people working, it was 3 guys on a $750,000 contract. They couldn't find more than 3 people to work. So it's tough, and I just wonder if our government couldn't or doesn't at all vet these people and say, hey, maybe in the contract it should say, well, we promise we're going to work 4 out of 5 days, weather permitting. We're going to have X amount of people on the job. I don't know if we maybe need to come up with these minimum standards when our politicians spend our money. And let's everybody remember, this is our money that's being used to fix these roads. So maybe we should have more of a voice and a say in how all that goes down.
And your event coming up on October 30th, that's Halloween Eve at Indo Restaurant. And how can people get tickets if they want to go and attend?
They can come in and buy tickets. We're kind of just putting this out there right now. We're also going to be, for some people maybe that can't make the event but still want to participate in a raffle, we are going to be selling raffle tickets at Indo and letting people know who the winners are. We're going to have one special raffle for those who can't make it. Excuse me. And again, you can come into Indo and buy tickets. Our new hours, we had to change our hours during this construction. We did stop doing lunch because it couldn't support a lunch. So basically we open 5 o'clock on Wednesdays, Thursdays, that's 5 till 9. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we open at 4. Friday and Saturday, we close at 10. Sunday, we close at 9. And we are going to start doing in November our hot pot again. So that's gonna allow us to open on Tuesdays. And we're negotiating with a pop-up. We're trying to maybe get a pop-up in on Monday. It's a friend of ours who does a soul food kitchen. So yeah, we're looking at doing some interesting things coming up in the next month or 2, and hope to see you guys there.
Well, we hope to see you there. We'll hopefully see a lot of people there too, Nick, and appreciate you coming on and telling us about this and also about some of the frustrations and the pains of going through the construction for many of our local businesses, and hopefully people will go out and support them. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. And by the way, I was down there today. The road still isn't open, but it looks like they got the guardrails up, and they should be on track to open tomorrow, hopefully. So.
Well, hopefully it will be open this week. It is expected to open very soon.
Okay.
Well, appreciate having you on as well, Nick. While the amount of deer in West Bloomfield seem to be growing by the day, as well as throughout the local area, and Oakland County has developed a deer survey that is open for all local residents to fill out regarding the deer issue. Recently, our own Larry Nyland had the chance to talk with West Bloomfield Township Supervisor Steve Kaplan about the survey, amongst many other local issues. Let's take a look.
So can you start off by talking about some of the issues that you've been made aware of over the years at Town Hall from the number of deer that we seem to have here in West Bloomfield?
Number of deer in the neighborhoods is proliferating. Last year, related to it, of course, we had 120 collisions between motor vehicles and deer. And in 2022, we've had 96 as of today. So number of deer has increased in the neighborhoods, and that means they're stopping on gardens, eating vegetables, making a mess of people's backyards and gardens.
And Steve, I know you know that there's a lot of people in the community who they enjoy feeding the deer, but it could lead to more problems. I mean, it could lead to them making that their home, and then they reproduce, and then we have more deer causing other issues.
Larry, excellent point on your part. Deer, remember, let's say Larry lives in West Bloomfield. He leaves strips of food for the deer, and they enjoy the morsels that you left behind. And the next day, they'll revisit you because they'll remember the food source.
Yeah, I have a neighbor who will feed the deer, but it brings other animals. So once the deer are done for the night, then you'll see like a beaver come by, you'll see raccoons come by, and it leads to other problems. It just does.
Larry, we have considered enacting an ordinance which would which would discourage people from feeding the deer. Several problems with it. Number one, do we really want to criminalize our residents when in good faith they're feeding the deer? Secondly, it's essentially unenforceable. How are we going to catch the violators? Are we going to have undercover officers hiding near the food source in order to apprehend the resident? Oh, I know a few communities, including Rochester Hills, do have such an ordinance, but I don't think the township board is interested in criminalizing that behavior.
So can you talk about what exactly is the Oakland County Community Deer Coalition, which I think was formed back in 2021?
Right. And to give credit to Oakland County, Farmington Hills, and Oakland County and Farmington Hills for spearheading this coalition. We joined the coalition immediately. We enacted a proclamation indicating that we do want to participate, and we have been. We've already had 8 meetings. They say not much is accomplished at a meeting, that a camel is a horse created by a committee, but we have had good discussions on this, and ultimately there are 5 possibilities apart from doing nothing in terms of reducing the deer population. One of them is to kill the deer, that's obvious. Second one is to have police officers visiting the backyards of people and shooting the deer. That really isn't practical. Ann Arbor has a procedure, it's called culling the deer, C-U-L-L, culling the deer, and that's where they lasso, they capture deer and they transport them to like a park, which is isolated, and then they shoot the deer. I don't know if our residents want that to occur. Another possibility that's being viewed is sterilization or contraceptives, where food is laced with contraceptives, and that would help reduce the deer population.
And so one of the ways where they're trying to figure out what might be the best solution to this is the regional deer survey that they formulated. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And that survey is available on West Bloomfield's website. And through November 11, any resident can complete the survey. And it would be helpful to us to determine, does the average resident or do a majority of residents want deer population to be reduced? Because there are people, Larry, who love seeing the deer. My wife, for one, she'll call me to the dining room window, say, look outside, look outside. There are 4 deer in our backyard. So she really enjoys the nature. And therefore, this is not a unanimous issue. I'd say it's probably split. I'd say many residents don't have an opinion because they have more important matters to deal with, although this is very important. And then some love the deer and don't want to reduce the deer population, and others think that we're overpopulated.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago when they built a new roundabout at Middlebelt and Maple, there was a huge percentage of the population that came to the meetings discussing when that was going to be built, that it was going to affect the deer population in the area because so many deer crossed over at that location.
Right. Another good point by you. In terms of why are deer increasing? Well, one is that the township is now 95% built. It's developed. And that means when a development goes into an area which at one time was undeveloped, obviously, then the deer are chased out, so to speak, and they then proliferate in the neighborhoods.
So I had the chance to print out the survey yesterday. It's really not that long. It only has about 7 questions on it. I mean, it basically asks if how the deer have affected your life. Do you think it's gotten worse over the years? And if it has affected your home, do you think there's a monetary figure that you can put on it? So it's things that if people are interested in getting control of the situation, it's a real easy survey to fill out.
Yes, and one gentleman sent a letter to the supervisor's office, and 3-page letter, very well written. Obviously, he has a scientific background, but he posed some suggestions, ideas for us. So you never know. It could be just one resident has an idea that the regional coalition would find palatable. And it could be that ideas from residents could lead to reducing the population of deer.
Well, I want to thank all of our guests from Nick Alonso from Indo and Kegel Harbor, as well as West Bloomfield Township Supervisor Steve Kaplan, who you saw there earlier on in the week with Larry Nyland. And a big thanks to all of our viewers for hanging out with us on today's edition of The Splash Live. I'm Tyler Keith. That's it for today's show. A happy Tuesday to you from all of our friends all across the greater West Bloomfield area on your very own TV, radio, and streaming show. Watch us Monday through Friday live from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Civic Center TV. Watch us on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99 on the web at civiccentertv.com, as well as on our Facebook page. You can even listen on the radio on 89.3 Lakes FM. Greater West Bloomfield, we'll see you tomorrow.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine.